Let's get real for a second. Every single one of us walks around with two versions of ourselves. The strong, grounded, courageous version and the weak, self-doubting, excuse-making version. And let me tell you something. That weak version, the one that plays small, avoids hard conversations, and tells you you're not enough, that version needs to go. Like today, I'm not talking about killing vulnerability. No, vulnerability is strength. I'm talking about killing the version of you that chooses comfort over courage, that hides behind perfectionism, that keeps you from showing up fully in your own damn life. Let's talk about that voice in your head. You know the one, the critic, the cynic, the relentless whisperer that tells you, you can't, you're not enough. Who do you think you are? That voice is not wisdom. It's not intuition. It's not looking out for your best interests. It's a liar, a manipulator, and worst of all, it sounds like you. It knows exactly what to say to keep you small, exactly which fears to poke at, and exactly which insecurities to exploit. And the longer you let that voice run the show, the more power it gains. The weak version of you thrives on these lies. It feeds off them. It uses them to build a case for why you should stay in your comfort zone, why you shouldn't take that risk. Speak up, ask for what you deserve, or dare to be seen. It says, you'll fail. You'll be judged. You're not like them. You don't belong. And you know what? If you don't challenge those lies, they become your truth. Not because they were ever real, but because you believed them long enough to let them shape you. So, how do you fight back? You name them. You call them out. You drag them into the light and refuse to let them operate in the shadows. I want you to get brutally honest about the things you tell yourself. What's the lie that plays on repeat in your mind? Maybe it's, I'm not smart enough, or I'm too much, or I always mess things up. Whatever it is, I want you to write it down, say it out loud, because the second you do, something powerful happens. You create distance. You separate yourself from the lie, and suddenly it's not an absolute truth anymore. It's just a thought you can challenge. And let's be clear, these lies don't just appear out of nowhere. They come from somewhere. Your past, your environment, your experiences. Maybe it was a teacher who told you you weren't talented enough. Maybe it was a parent who made you feel like you had to earn love through perfection. Maybe it was society whispering that people like you don't get to have big dreams. These messages get embedded deep. But here's the truth. Just because something was planted in you doesn't mean it has to grow. You get to decide what takes root. The weak version of you wants to pretend these lies are facts. It wants you to accept them without question. But the strongest version of you, the version we're calling forward today, that version fights back. That version fact checks every negative thought and asks, is this actually true? Or is this just fear trying to keep me safe? And let me tell you, 99% of the time, it's fear talking. And fear is not a fortune teller. It doesn't know your future. It only knows how to keep you trapped in a small, predictable life. So today, right now, I want you to start noticing the lies. When that voice pops up and tells you you can't, I want you to stop and ask, who decided that? Because here's what I know for sure. If you don't challenge the lies, you'll live by them. But if you face them, if you name them, if you decide to replace them with truth, you take back your power. You stop being controlled by a false narrative and you start writing your own story. And that, my friends, is how you begin the process of killing your weak version of yourself. You don't do it overnight. You don't do it by force. You do it by taking away its fuel, by exposing the lies, dismantling them, and refusing to let them dictate who you become. because you are not the thoughts that try to keep you small. You are not the fears that try to hold you back. You are something so much bigger than that. Discomfort is not the enemy. I want you to sit with that for a second, because most of us have been wired to believe the opposite. We are conditioned to seek comfort. Comfort in our routines, our relationships, our work, and even in the way we see ourselves. But let me tell you something. The strongest, most courageous version of you, that version does not live in comfort. That version is built in discomfort. It grows in uncertainty. It is shaped in the moments where you feel like you're in over your head, where you're stretched beyond what you think you can handle. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Brene, I don't like discomfort. It's painful. It's scary. It makes me want to quit. And yeah, of course it does. That's what discomfort is supposed to do. It's supposed to test you. But here's the difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck. People who grow don't run from discomfort. They lean into it. They recognize it as proof that they are evolving. They understand that strength is built in the moments that challenge them, not in the moments that keep them safe. Look at any person who has ever done something extraordinary. Athletes, leaders, artists, entrepreneurs. Every single one of them has one thing in common. They got comfortable with discomfort. They pushed through rejection. They sat in the frustration of failing. They embraced the awkward, messy, in-between stages of growth, because they knew something most people refuse to accept. If you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. Think about this in your own life. Where are you avoiding discomfort? Maybe it's in your career. You want to ask for that promotion, but the thought of rejection makes you stay silent. Maybe it's in your relationships. You know you need to have a hard conversation, but the discomfort of being vulnerable keeps you from speaking your truth. Or maybe it's in your personal development. You want to break a habit, start a new routine, or chase a big dream, but the discomfort of change keeps you stuck in the same patterns. Whatever it is, I need you to hear me on this. The version of you that stays comfortable is the weaker version of you. Now, I'm not saying discomfort is easy. It's not. It's going to feel like resistance. It's going to make you second guess yourself. It's going to make you want to retreat back to what's safe. But let me tell you something. Discomfort is not a stop sign. It's a green light. It's a sign that you're doing something that matters, that you're stretching, that you're stepping into a version of yourself that is stronger, braver, and more resilient than you ever imagined. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is that we should wait until we feel ready before we step into something new. But readiness is a myth. You're never going to feel fully ready. You're never going to wake up one day and say, "Oh, great. Today's the perfect day to face my fears and do the hard thing." No, that's not how it works. The only way you get ready is by doing it scared, by showing up in the discomfort, by proving to yourself that you can handle more than you think you can. So here's the challenge. Instead of resisting discomfort, I want you to reframe it. I want you to start seeing it as a signal, not that you're failing, but that you're growing. Not that you're breaking down, but that you're breaking through. Every single time you feel that discomfort creeping in, I want you to pause and remind yourself, this is where I get stronger. This is where I become who I am meant to be. Because at the end of the day, the version of you that stays comfortable will never be the version of you that reaches your fullest potential. You either own your story or your story owns you. There is no in between. I want you to sit with that for a second, because this is the point where a lot of people check out. They hear the words, own your story and immediately think, no thanks, I'd rather just move on. I don't want to look back. I don't want to unpack all that. But here's the truth. If you don't claim your story, if you don't face it, if you don't process it, it will control you. It will sneak into your decisions, your relationships, your self-worth, and your ability to step into your power. Owning your story isn't about dwelling on the past. It's about reclaiming your future. A lot of us have been trained to hide parts of our story, to shrink the messy, complicated, painful chapters and pretend they don't exist. But what happens when we do that? Shame takes over. And let me tell you something about shame. It loves secrecy. It thrives in the dark. It convinces you that your story makes you unworthy, that your failures define you, that your struggles are proof that you are not enough. But the second you bring that story into the light, the second you say, this is what I've been through, and it does not own me, you take your power back. Think about the parts of your story you've been running from. Maybe it's a failure that still haunts you, a mistake you can't seem to forgive yourself for, a moment where you felt small, unworthy, or unseen. I want you to ask yourself, what would happen if I stopped being afraid of this part of me? What if, instead of seeing it as something to be ashamed of, I saw it as something that made me stronger? Because here's the thing, your story is not a weakness. It is proof of your resilience. It is evidence that you have survived, that you have grown, that you have lived. Owning your story also means letting go of the version of yourself that you created to please other people. We all do it. We shape-shift, we adapt, we mold ourselves into whatever we think will make us the most acceptable, the most successful, the most loved. But at what cost? When you spend your life trying to be who the world expects you to be, you lose who you actually are. You build a version of yourself that looks strong on the outside but feels completely disconnected on the inside. Owning your story means dropping the performance. It means standing fully in your truth, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's messy, even when it makes other people uncomfortable. And let me tell you something, people will have opinions. When you start showing up as your real self, when you start owning your truth unapologetically, some people won't like it. They won't understand it. And that's okay. Because your story was never meant to be filtered through someone else's approval. You are not here to make other people comfortable. You are here to be fully, unapologetically you. The strongest version of you isn't the one that fits neatly into a box. It's the one that says, this is me, no edits, no apologies. So how do you start owning your story? You stop running from it. You stop letting shame write your narrative. You get curious about the parts of yourself that you've ignored, and you start asking hard questions. Where have I been? What have I learned? What do I want to carry forward, and what do I need to release? Owning your story is about stepping into the driver's seat of your life and deciding, I will not be a passive character in my own existence. I will take ownership of every chapter, the good, the bad, and the transformative. Because here's the truth. Your story is your superpower. It holds the key to your strength, your purpose, your resilience. But you can't use that power if you're constantly running from it. You can't step into your fullest potential if you're still carrying shame about where you've been. The weak version of you wants to hide. The strong version of you, that version stands tall, owns every piece of the journey, and says, this is who I am, and I refuse to be anything less. Fear is not your friend. It is not your mentor, your advisor, or your protector. But let's be honest. Most of us treat fear like it's the CEO of our lives. We consult it before we make decisions. We wait for its approval before we take action. We let it sit at the head of the table, telling us what's possible and what's not. But here's the truth. Fear is not here to guide you. It's here to control you. And the longer you let it lead, the smaller your life becomes. Now, I'm not saying fear doesn't have a purpose. It does. Fear is wired into us for survival. It keeps us from walking into traffic, from jumping off cliffs, from making reckless decisions. But fear doesn't know the difference between real danger and imagined danger. It reacts the same way to a life-threatening situation as it does to the idea of public speaking, making a bold career move, or telling someone how you really feel. Fear's job is to keep you safe, but safe isn't the goal. Growth is. Impact is. Living fully is. But here's where most people get stuck. They think fear needs to disappear before they take action. They wait for the moment when they finally feel ready. They think that confidence is what comes first. But that's not how it works. Confidence doesn't come before courage. It comes after. It comes from doing the thing, feeling the fear, and proving to yourself that you are bigger than it. If you wait until fear leaves, you will wait forever. Think about all the things fear has talked you out of. The moments you stayed silent when you should have spoken up. The dreams you put on hold because you didn't feel qualified. The opportunities you let pass by because fear whispered, "What if you fail? What if they judge you? What if you're not enough?" And let me ask you something. Has listening to fear made your life better? Has it expanded you? Or has it kept you stuck in a cycle of regret, wondering what could have been if you had just had the courage to move through it? The weak version of you loves negotiating with fear. It loves overthinking, hesitating, finding reasons to delay. It loves the illusion of control. Because when you're stuck in your head, convincing yourself that now's not the right time, you don't have to take action. You don't have to risk anything. You don't have to face the possibility of failing. But let me tell you something. The cost of staying the same is so much higher than the cost of failing. Because failure teaches you, it strengthens you. But staying the same, that just keeps you in a life that never reaches its full potential. So how do you stop negotiating with fear? You stop asking for its opinion. You stop treating it like it deserves a say in your future. The next time fear says you can't do this, you respond with, "Watch me." The next time fear says, "But what if you fail?" you respond with, "Then I'll learn and try again." The next time fear tries to pull you back into your comfort zone, you remind yourself that comfort zones are just prisons that feel safe. You were not built for a small, predictable life. You were built to stretch, to evolve, to step into something bigger than yourself. And here's the thing, fear will never fully go away. It will always be there, whispering, warning, trying to keep you small. But you don't have to listen. You don't have to let it make your choices. Fear can sit in the car, but it does not get to drive. You do. Your mindset is either your greatest weapon or your biggest weakness. It determines whether you rise after failure or let it define you. It shapes how you respond to challenges, how you see yourself, and whether you ever reach your full potential. The strongest people in the world, the ones who achieve, who impact, who inspire, aren't necessarily the smartest, the most talented, or the most privileged. They are the ones who have trained their minds to be unshakable. They have built the kind of mental toughness that allows them to keep moving forward no matter what gets thrown in their way. And if you don't develop that kind of mindset, you will always live at the mercy of your circumstances. But let's be clear, building an unshakable mindset isn't about pretending things don't affect you. It's not about ignoring pain, suppressing fear, or forcing yourself to stay positive when things get hard. That's not strength, that's avoidance. A strong mindset isn't about faking confidence. It's about developing the resilience to face anything without breaking. It's about knowing that no matter what happens, setbacks, failures, criticism, you will not quit. You will not give up on yourself. You will not let one hard season define the rest of your life. The weak version of you wants to stay comfortable. It wants to avoid difficulty, avoid struggle, avoid failure. But here's the thing. The strongest version of you is built inside of those struggles. Strength isn't something you wake up with. It's something you earn through repetition. Every single time you show up, even when it's hard, every time you push through self-doubt, every time you keep going when everything in you wants to stop, that is how you build a mind that cannot be shaken. And make no mistake, life will test you. It will throw obstacles in your path. It will hand you failures, heartbreak, and moments where you feel like giving up. But your mindset, your unshakable belief in yourself, is what will decide whether you stay down or rise up stronger. The people who make it aren't the ones who have an easy road. They are the ones who refuse to let anything break them. They're the ones who don't waste time complaining about how unfair life is, but instead focus on what they can control. And that's the key, control the controllables. You can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. You can control your effort. You can control your perspective. You can control whether you let something defeat you or teach you. Every single day you have a choice. You can let your challenges make you weaker, or you can use them as fuel to become stronger. And the people who develop an unshakable mindset, they choose strength every single time. So how do you start? You challenge your own excuses. You stop allowing yourself to be limited by old stories that no longer serve you. You stop letting fear, self-doubt, and temporary discomfort dictate your decision. And most importantly, you stop waiting to feel ready, because readiness is a lie. If you wait until you feel strong, until you feel brave, until you feel completely prepared, you will never take action. Strength comes from action. It comes from stepping into the unknown and proving to yourself that you can handle it. At the end of the day, an unshakable mindset isn't something you're born with. It's something you build. It's the decision to rise every time you fall, to get back up every time life knocks you down, to refuse to let fear, failure, or discomfort hold you back. Because the weak version of you, the version that makes excuses, that quits when things get tough, that lets fear win, that version doesn't get to run your life anymore. The strongest version of you, the one who shows up, who pushes forward, who never stops growing, that version, that's the one we're choosing now. Self-doubt is a thief. It will steal your dreams, your confidence, and your ability to step into the person you are meant to be. And the worst part, it doesn't do it all at once. No, self-doubt works in whispers. It sneaks in slowly, feeding you small lies until one day you look around and realize you've built your entire life inside of its walls. You've stopped chasing your goals. You've started playing small. You've let opportunities slip away, not because you weren't capable, but because self-doubt convinced you that you weren't. Here's the truth. Self-doubt is not reality. It is a story that was planted in you by past failures, by critical voices, by the fear of not being enough. And if you're not careful, that story will run your life. You'll find yourself second-guessing every decision, hesitating every time you should be taking action, holding back when you should be stepping forward. But let me ask you something. How much longer are you willing to let self-doubt dictate your future? How much longer will you sit on the sidelines of your own life, waiting to feel good enough before you finally start playing full out? The weak version of you believes self-doubt. It listens to those voices that say, "You're not ready. You're not talented enough. Who do you think you are?" But the strongest version of you, that version knows better. That version knows that self-doubt is just fear dressed up in a different outfit. It's not truth, it's insecurity. And the only way to silence it is to take action in spite of it. Think about this. Every single person you admire, every leader, every game changer, every person who has ever done something extraordinary, they all had self-doubt. They all had moments where they felt like frauds. The difference? They didn't let it stop them. They understood that confidence doesn't come first, action does. They didn't wait to feel ready. They moved forward anyway. And guess what? That's how confidence is built. Not by waiting, but by proving to yourself over and over that you can do hard things. The problem is, too many of us have been conditioned to think that if we don't feel confident, we shouldn't act. That if self-doubt is present, it means we aren't meant for something. But that's a lie. Self-doubt is normal. It's part of the process. The key is to stop letting it make decisions for you. You have to become the kind of person who hears self-doubt and responds with, "Thank you for your input, but I'm doing it anyway." You don't have to feel fearless to take action. You just have to refuse to let fear win. So how do you break free? You stop waiting for the day when self-doubt disappears. That day will never come. What will happen, though, is that the more you take action, the quieter it gets. The more you prove to yourself that you are capable, the less power it holds over you. Every time you do the thing that scares you, every time you push through doubt and show up anyway, you weaken its grip. Self-doubt only has power if you feed it, starve it by taking action. At the end of the day, you have two choices. Let self-doubt control your life, or take control of your own story. One path leads to regret, to wondering what could have been, to a life half lived. The other, it leads to growth, to confidence, to stepping fully into your power. The weak version of you will always choose self-doubt, but the strongest version of you, that version is done playing small. Growth is not a one-time event. It is not something you do when it's convenient or when motivation is high. Growth is a daily, relentless commitment. A decision you make over and over again to push yourself beyond your limits, to challenge your old ways of thinking, to refuse to settle for anything less than your full potential. And here's the truth. If you are not actively growing, you are decaying. There is no standing still in life. You are either evolving into the best version of yourself or slowly slipping back into the weaker version that fear, doubt, and comfort want you to be. But let's be honest, growth is uncomfortable. It requires you to face parts of yourself that you'd rather ignore. It forces you to admit when you're wrong, to step into uncertainty, to risk failure, and to push through resistance. And most people don't want that. They want transformation without discomfort. They want results without struggle. They want the rewards of growth without the work that comes with it. But that's not how this works. Growth isn't given, it's earned. And the only way to earn it is to do the hard, messy, uncomfortable work of becoming more than who you were yesterday. The weak version of you avoids growth because it feels like a threat. It clings to old habits, old stories, old excuses. It says, I've always been this way, or this is just who I am. But the strongest version of you, that version knows better. That version understands that identity is not fixed. That version refuses to be limited by the past. That version is willing to tear down everything that no longer serves it and build something stronger in its place. One of the biggest barriers to growth is the belief that change has to be massive. That transformation happens overnight. But real, lasting growth, it happens in the small, consistent choices you make every single day. It's in the books you read, the people you surround yourself with, the conversations you engage in, and the way you show up even when no one is watching. Growth is built in the unseen moments, the ones where you decide again and again to be just a little bit better than you were the day before. And here's the thing, growth is not a straight path. It's messy, it's full of setbacks, failures, and moments where you feel like you're going backward instead of forward. But growth isn't about perfection. It's about persistence. It's about refusing to let failure mean stop and instead letting it mean adjust, learn, and keep moving. The people who grow the most are the ones who see failure as feedback, not as a definition of who they are. They understand that every setback is an opportunity to refine, to sharpen, and to come back stronger. So how do you commit to relentless growth? You start by getting honest about where you are now. You stop lying to yourself about the areas where you're holding back. You stop blaming circumstances, people, or the past for why you're stuck. You take full responsibility for your own evolution, and then you take action. You don't wait for motivation. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You move, you push, you stretch yourself every single day. Because growth doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who pursue it with everything they have. At the end of the day, relentless growth is a choice to break free from who you've been and step into who you are meant to be. A choice to keep pushing, keep evolving, and keep showing up, even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable, even when you feel like you're not making progress. The weak version of you resists growth, but the strongest version of you, that version is unstoppable. At the end of the day, killing the weak version of yourself isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the strongest, boldest, most powerful version of who you were always meant to be. It's about stripping away the fear, the doubt, the excuses, and the limitations that have been holding you back. It's about choosing to rise again and again, no matter how many times you've fallen. The truth is, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you confidence, discipline, or success. No one is going to force you to grow. This is your responsibility. This is your fight. And the moment you stop waiting for permission, the moment you decide enough is enough, is the moment your entire life begins to change. So ask yourself, are you ready to step up? Are you ready to stop living at half capacity and finally claim the life that is waiting for you? Are you ready to walk away from the weak version of yourself and into the person you were always meant to be? Because that version of you, it's time to meet them. And they're not waiting any longer.